Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey's State of the Port for 2026. We had a little hiccup last week with some weather, but like our industry always does, we adjusted, we adapted, and it's great to see everybody here today. So we have an excellent program for you today. We're very excited about it, and I want to kick it off by introducing our chairman, Chairman Kevin O'Toole, who has just been a tremendous supporter of everything that we in the Port Department have done and accomplished at the Port Authority. Nothing gets done without his support, and he's been there for us for 8.5 years, and we're so glad to have him behind us and pulling for everything that we do. So, Chairman.
Who told you to say that, Michael? Beth Ann? Your boss said you were nervous today. Are you nervous, Michael? You're good? All right. Good morning, everybody. How we doing? Crazy weather out there. I like coming here every year just to say thank you to our partners as we look across the room here. You know, when I came here 8.5 years ago with Rick Cotton, one of the least appreciated departments and least understood departments was the Port Department. They confuse it with the Port of New York and New Jersey. The Port, it is the most magnificent department we have in the Port Authority. 8,000 employees, the hardest working 162 work under Beth Ann Rooney. It's just amazing what she does and what her department does. For every Port employee, please stand up and take a round of applause if you're here today, including Beth, Michael, and the rest of your gang. Please stand up. Thank you. You make the impossible possible. So I ran into one of your former employees, Beth, today, whose last day was last Friday. And she told me for the last 33 years she's been on a ride of her lifetime. And so thank you, Mary, for doing what you've done for 33 years. You've gave us your best, and go out and have a great time. Thank you for your sacrifice. So you probably heard Rick Cotton is retiring, which is the worst news I've heard in a long time. Rick has been my buddy, my partner, my friend, and what he has done, he has reimagined management here at the Port Authority. And you know where it was, you know where it is, and given Rick's dedication, Rick's commitment, he has just reimagined management. He has just imposed his will, set higher standards, demanded more of us, and he's all brought us to this different place. We're all proud to say we're Port Authority employees or volunteers working with this magnificent group. So I ask you at the appropriate time to give Rick Cotton a round of applause for his 8.5 years of amazing, unparalleled leadership. Job well done, Rick. You know, I found myself last week, and I was unexpectedly so, going down to the port, and it was crappy out, it was muddy, it was freezing, and I had received so many phone calls. This is unusual in 8.5 years, from mayors and county executives and administrators and state senators, and they were all screaming for one thing, as if I could make it happen. And what do you think that was? Salt. Salt. So I go, Beth, where are you? And of course she was working. I said, I'm going to meet you. I just, for whatever, we tried to get folks from Morton's and Atlantic, and we came across this shed. Where's Greg? Stand up. This man was there 24/7. I pounded on his shed. I go, we need salt. What are you doing? And he sat there. It was like blistering cold. And he was taking phone calls from a bunch of the folks who were under duress. And I wouldn't say the mayors didn't plan properly. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say the county executive didn't plan properly. But Greg, you and your company, we owe a debt of gratitude to you folks doing the impossible. Really took a really tough and hard job and made it easier. Thank you for what you've done, and thank you for your company, and thanks for Morton's and the other folks who have made it all possible. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. And we don't One of the things that makes the port so special is we recognize people who do so much for us. It's not just faceless. Beth is going to talk about the year of 2025 and talk about the wonderfulness that's projected for 2026, and she will mesmerize you all with stats she has committed. But one of the reasons I want to come here today is to just talk about Beth. She's like our MVP. She's been with us for 34 years, and she's been our leader. There's like 4 people that have kind of, since the moment I got here, said in very different times and tones and styles, and Beth's style is very direct if you don't know that, how you need to govern, how you need to manage. And again, everybody here, your lives, your careers, your family lives have been impacted for better because of what Beth has done, her leadership, her brand of management. She cares about this. She's cared about it since she's been here since 1993, along with Michael and everybody else. So when we say thank you to the success of the port, when you'll hear about later on, it starts with one person. That is Beth Ann Rooney. Amazing leader. She is one of our stars. A round of applause for Beth Rooney. The best. The best. And we are not allowing her to retire, just so you know. Not yet, right? We got some time left. So let me leave. I know there's a big program ahead of us. We've had a really busy 2025. MAR, 8 p.m., really excited about those 33 and 35-year deals. A lot of exciting innovations, a lot of construction going on. 26, 27, 28 is going to be crazy. The airports are crazy in terms of construction. Come to the ports. I just came here today to say thank you very much. Look for an exciting 2026. Wish you the best. And if you need us, please give us a call. And thank you for your partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman O'Toole. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to eat, okay, and get everybody fed, and then after we eat, we'll get into our program. So before we eat, however, I'd like to call up Reverend Bill Allport to give us a blessing. Thank you, Reverend.
Good morning. Joy to see you all. Just before I share the prayer, I want to remind you all of the work of Seamen's Church Institute and our 200 years nearly of history of caring for seafarers and mariners, but also our desire to also care for the whole port community. And that you are always welcome to our International Seafarer Center on 118 Export Street. My colleague Matt Morris, the director, is here. And if you want a tour, if you want a quiet place, if you want a quiet bathroom, it's all right there. You're welcome to come. We try to gather together also. So just a reminder that for those that it's part of your faith tradition, we will share the imposition of ashes on February 18th at 8:30 service, very simple, and also around the port for those who desire it. Or if you'd like to drop by, you can receive ashes then. And we're also planning a memorial commemoration service for the 25th anniversary of September 11th. And so hope that if you would like to be a part of that and join us for that interfaith service, to just look out for that news. But remember that we are here for you. And if you hear of any crew or any ship, any colleague that needs an ear, that needs a heart, needs some grace, let them know that we are here to be with them and for you. So as we join together in these moments of concern and common work, let us pray. Accept, O Lord, our thanks and praise for all you have done for us. Thank you for the splendor of the whole creation, the beauty of this world, the gift of oceans and rivers, fullness of your skies, the expansive ways you connect us to know the wonder of life and the mystery of love. We thank you for setting us with colleagues and family and friends, co-workers, the care that surrounds us in faithful work together. And join this moment as we, in the wonder and diversity of the port of New York and New Jersey, we give thanks for the common goals we share in collegiality and support, seeking the safety, security, and protection of countless lives, myriad of vessels, the many things needed by and provided to households in our country. For the many ways your children travel to meet others and to be met. We give thanks for the countless lives recognized and unnoticed through the port community, that engineer, advocate, design, or work in so many ways. We ask for protection for all, on perilous seas, on the shore, under hostile conditions or calm, in bright sun, the depth of snow, piercing winds or driving rain, or pleasing days, those that watch and observe in darkness or unnoticed places, those working in cramped engine compartments or security booths, those reviewing piles of papers or data in dim light. Guard them under the shadow of your wing. As a giver of wisdom, thank you for the vision of the Port Authority, begun in New York, that modeled for a nation the depth, breadth, and importance of formation of consistent commerce, exchange, and transport, travel with such great diversity. We give you thanks for the generations that have worked before us and that join with us. We give thanks for all those gathered here in this holy moment of celebration and caretaking that they provide and further in our common work and beside on your majestic waters. We give you thanks also for those disappointments and failures that lead us to acknowledge our dependence on your wonder, beckoning us to faithful work, stewardship, and life together. Bless us and always keep us mindful and responsive to those in need within this community and those we meet and serve. Bless us, keep us. The Lord make his face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift his countenance upon us and give us peace this day and evermore. And bless us food to our use and us to your service. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. So lunch will be served in the foyer. Please don't all bum rush the food, but, one table at a time or tables at a time. It'll be served right outside these doors, and we are going to come back at 1 o'clock to start the rest of the program. So please enjoy your lunch. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for attending the 2026 State of the Port for the Port of New York, New Jersey. I want to welcome those of us that are joining us as we're live streaming on YouTube. To kick off our program today, we're very fortunate to have John Nardi, President of the Shipping Association of New York and New Jersey. John's going to give us an update on activities at the association. John?
Thank you, Mike. A couple of points of clarification. We've been doing this for how many years now, Beth? Maybe longer. We pay for half of this, the association, so the terminal operators and the ocean carriers pay for the chicken and the beef. And the Port Authority had the salad and the coleslaw, so enjoy it. Well, dessert, yeah, all right, we'll split the dessert. I think I said the same thing last year, walking from my car to this event, was how about the people working outside, right? I mean, here we are having a nice lunch, nice and warm. I've had longshoremen tell me this past week that they've never been so cold in their life. And we got a couple of more weeks of it at least. Speaking to the captain about they're spending most of their time clearing ice right now to keep freight moving. And then you have the truckers and you got the salt people. Mike, you could finally move that pile of salt that's been sitting there for 5 years waiting for truckers, pilots, you name it. Okay, so while we're giving out hands, I think those are the people who really deserve the hands here. So. Just give a little overview of the past year. You know, last year was a really crazy year. I mean, looking back on it, you know, we saw a continued shift of business in the port. It's like a merry-go-round, right? You had the 2M split between Maersk and MSC, and then Hapag-Lloyd joined Maersk and moved business to APM. CMA purchased the facilities in Bayonne and in Staten Island, and they moved business to there. The Port Authority and the City of New York swapped leases on Brooklyn and Staten Island. And it really upsets the labor's balance in the port because labor just doesn't move however they want to. Doesn't move with the business. They stay with the facility because the seniority is seniority-based. So if they move from one facility to another and they're a senior person, they go to the bottom of the list. So it looks like although those changes have kind of settled down for now, we'll probably have more stability on that front. On the volume side, I'm sure Beth is going to get into more of those details. You know, good question, right? Between tariffs and geopolitical issues, not so sure what's going to happen. Things have remained pretty steady for us. When I look at the work hours in the port, they've been very steady. But whatever it is, we're going to deal with it. So that's what we do best. Last year, at this time, the master contract and the local contract on the labor front were agreed to in principle, but they weren't yet ratified. So that didn't happen until March. The local was actually negotiated 2 years prior, and we actually at that time had to spend like a month trying to remember what we actually agreed to. So we worked that out. Again, the master contract, it mainly deals with wages, automation, healthcare, and jurisdiction. These issues, they all received a lot of attention because of the strike that we had. And those were the popular issues that were, you know, being battled in the press. Automation, you know, it's going to be an evergreen issue. Why? Because of, you know, that's the way the world is right now, and plus it helps you with density and be able to use land better. And because we have limited expansion possibilities in the port from a land perspective, so I'm sure that's going to be an ongoing issue. But back to the contracts. Okay. Well, we heard a lot about automation and jurisdiction and wages. The local that was the master. The local contract, we really focused on a couple of items. And there were a couple of people in the room, I don't know if they are still here because they have work to do. We worked very closely with the ILA trying to fix some long-standing challenges, right? Absenteeism, big issue. Not just our industry, every industry you go to. You know, COVID really, I think, sent things in the wrong direction. Evolution, you know, people also, you know, they think a little differently than when we were starting out. Me being an old person now, I guess, where you worked around the clock, whatever it took. Now people want to spend time with their families, right? We also had an absentee problem because we were wearing people out during COVID, and we had them working around the clock, and then they would need time off. They would need a break. After COVID, we had been hiring, you know, up to that point, and then the volume went down to normal levels, and we finally had a right number of people in the workforce. So, and plus we also had the state police now overseeing the work in in New Jersey, sorry, and they do a great job of processing people and making sure that we have the right size workforce, which we do now. However, my staff, the employers, and the ILA put a tremendous effort into creating new absentee policies that work. We put these strict rules in place. I mean, absenteeism is inevitable, right? Sometimes you need a day off, you have a problem, something happens in your family, right? Things happen. So you can take a couple of days off for unanticipated reasons. But if you leave yourself in the system and accept a job, you need to take that job now. You can't just not show up without repercussions. So, and really, if you look at how ships are worked, it's a production line, right? If you have a break in that production line of getting that box off the ship and out the gate, then it slows down the whole production line, okay? So the results so far of this new absentee policy that we put in place with the ILA, absenteeism is down 50% throughout the port, which is a tremendous accomplishment that we've fought for years to improve. And we had the full support of the ILA at the highest level. In fact, this past week, we actually had 5 people who were thrown out of the industry because of absenteeism. We're not fooling around anymore with it. ILA isn't fooling around. It makes sense. If they're focused on stemming the tide of automation, your people need to show up. And they get that, and they understand that. Productivity. Productivity is also an ongoing issue in the port. We're always lagging behind. We're always chasing the volume. You know, the volume would go up. We'd have to hire more people. It would take a long time to hire them, and we could never catch up. We have a program in our contract where each gang and each terminal needs to improve their productivity by 1 move an hour, okay? Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's enormous when you're talking about thousands of moves on ships with hundreds of hours being worked. And if you don't make that improvement of 1 move an hour, then the gangs who are performing are going to get the work, right? And if you're not going to perform, you're going to get what's left over. So there's incentives in there for workers now to improve their productivity. So far, the result, combined with the absentee improvement, in Newark and Elizabeth, where 80% of the work in the port takes place, productivity is up on an average of 7%. In one terminal, it's 10, another one, it's 10%. One is 4, one is 7. So there's been an improvement across the board. The other terminals haven't seen the same improvement. Number one, because one was already at a super high level, and another one is dealing with implementation issues of infrastructure and new equipment. And we expect these productivity numbers to improve throughout the year. So these are all great developments, but we do have some challenges on the labor front. Biggest challenge we have is New York, and it's really just the difficulty of getting workers from New Jersey to go to New York. Why? The cost of getting around. I did a little sample here, and too bad the chairman isn't here because he'd probably throw me out, but that's okay. So for me to go to Brooklyn and back, I live in Monmouth County, okay? So if you're a longshoreman, you go to Monmouth County, right? Well, what does that cost? Well, it's 80 miles round trip, okay? And the IRS says that the cost of reimbursement for a mile when you drive is 75 cents for a car. So that's $58 right there. Just own your car, pay for gas, wear and tear. Then you have the tolls. You have the Raritan Toll Plaza, $2.40. Then you have the pleasure of your outer bridge, which is $14, right? Then you have the honor of paying the Verrazano Bridge both ways, which is $10.17, well, we'll call it $20 for a round trip. So to get back, there and back, it's $94 in tolls. I mean, this is for a person with a car. I can just imagine with a truck, the number of zeros you have to add to that. Then you get to work, you have the pleasure of paying New Jersey state tax, New York state tax, New York City tax, and of course, federal tax. So an 8-hour day, if you're making $30 an hour, if you're a new worker, you make $240. Say less 35% for all the taxes, you bring home $156, subtract your $94 traveling cost. Congratulations, for 8 hours work, you made $62 or $7.50 an hour. So we at the association are taking a very different look about how we, it used to be that it was a shape job, which it still is, but nobody really wants to travel around and fill in jobs anymore like they used to because they can't afford it. So So we're working very hard for the Brooklyn Marine Terminal, the cruise terminal there, South Brooklyn Marine Terminal, Manhattan Cruise, trying to figure out how do we have like a permanent staffing more than we have today to deal with the peaks and valleys in New York. And hopefully the Waterfront Commission, I mean, all the signs have been good so far, trying to help us develop that. I mean, the port's evolving, so we have to evolve with it, with labor. Moving off of that, one of my focuses on 2026 is creating better lines of communication for people in the supply chain, mainly warehouse operators and marine terminals, right? Working with Dan Kennedy of NAIOP, we had a first meeting last year of warehouse operators and marine terminal operators just to get the discussion started on how do we, because whenever we try to do something at the marine terminals, we hear, oh, well, the warehouses are making us do that. And I'm sure that the warehouses are hearing something along the same lines on the other end. So how do we make better use of the supply chain and the resources available to us? How do we make better use of hours of operation? Because it's one thing that's clear is we can't continue to operate and grow in the same box that we've been in, you know, forever here, right? We make, in my opinion, very poor use of our total infrastructure, as good as it can be. You know, we try to pack it into a 12-hour day. Hours of operation need to change, right? Need to work at night. You know, why doesn't the supply chain, why aren't there incentives for the supply chain and that $94 worth of tolls and for truckers even more, why aren't there incentives to get people to work at night so we're not competing for the same infrastructure with the commuters and the school buses and everybody else? So in 2024, we're really going to take a deeper dive into how do we expand those hours of working instead of just trying to pack everything into a small package. So thank you for coming. The brownies are from us. The cookies are from, but they're oatmeal cookies from the Port Authority. And thank you all for coming today and listening to me. Bye-bye.
Thank you, John. You certainly highlighted, obviously, a number of challenges. We came out of 2025, right? And Beth will talk about volumes and things like that, and the good year that it was, despite those challenges. And as we look forward to 2026, you know, we know already there's going to be a lot of stuff happening in the harbor, and not the least of which is going to be the celebration of our 250th anniversary as a country, and Sailforth 250. And so we're here to talk a little bit about that and other things that the Coast Guard is doing every single day to keep us safe and secure. Happy to welcome Captain John Andrejczyk, Captain of the Port for New York and New Jersey. Captain.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be with you here today at another State of the Port event. And I just want to say, you know, as we sit here and pause on all the progress that's been made across the port in 2025 and forecast what we hope will be an even better 2026 to come, we at Coast Guard Sector New York remain committed to ensuring a safe, secure, reliable, and resilient marine transportation system. And I know that's an objective we all share. So I wanted to just start by telling you all of that, but wanted to thank Beth and John for the opportunity to speak for just a few minutes to you on some major events that we have coming up this year that will be significant for the port. And I will just start by saying we are 152 days away, for those of you who are counting down, to July 4th, which will be the nation's 250th birthday. And to commemorate that event, We are right now, and have been for some time now, planning to host a number of major events here in the port. And I'll start by just saying I've got two slides. This is one will kind of give you some details on the event overview. The second is a slide about the planning effort. So to start with the event overview, first thing I want to acknowledge is that this event falls in the time frame of July 1st through July, we'll say 9th or 10th. We're still working the details with the Navy and Sailforth on when tall ships may officially conclude their departures from the port. But that you can plan for the period of July 1st through the 10th being sort of the main focus for the America 250 celebrations here in New York Harbor. That falls, for those of you who are tracking the FIFA World Cup events, right in the middle of the 39 days of the FIFA World Cup events here in New York and New Jersey, which will begin on June 11th and conclude with the World Cup final here in northern New Jersey on July 19th. So certainly a challenging time with FIFA already here to be adding these 250th events. But nonetheless, we're committed to a comprehensive and collaborative planning effort, which we've, again, have been at for some time now, to ensure that we can pull these events off safely and have certainly a memorable experience for everybody. So just to highlight, you can see represented there on kind of the bottom half of the slide, really the main event during this week-long period will be the 4th of July, when we expect 4 major events to happen. That will be the International Naval Review. Will start the day. That event will be just the 7th International Naval Review in United States history, where we'll welcome approximately 50 U.S. and allied warships from around the world here to the port. And that they will join another group of tall ships that are coming also to the port for the Sailforth 250 celebration. So that July 4th day will begin with the International Naval Review. We anticipate ships will be anchored from the Verrazano Bridge all the way up to the George Washington Bridge in about 45 or so anchorages. At the conclusion of the INR, we'll move into the International Tall Ship Parade, which will be led by the Coast Guard cutter Eagle. And just about when the Eagle arrives at the reviewing platform there off Liberty Island, the International Aerial Review will begin. And we expect somewhere around 100 U.S. and allied aircraft, military aircraft, to essentially conduct a large flyover of the harbor. And that'll be sequenced with the Tall Ship Parade. Those aircraft will also be in town for, many of you are probably familiar with the Jones Beach Air Show, which has also been moved this year to coincide with these events. So those aircraft will participate in the aerial review in the morning, and then they'll proceed to Jones Beach for the air show later in the day. And then we'll have a bit of a pause, and then we'll move, of course, into our fireworks display in the evening. This will be Macy's 50th Fireworks Spectacular, and we're also expecting a fireworks display in the Hudson River by Jersey City. So a very, very busy day in the port on July 4th, and I think what Beth was hoping I would highlight for you is just what we expect some of the impacts to be to commercial operations here in the port. So I have, from the beginning of this planning effort, told the event sponsors that I intend for the port to remain open for business during this time. Realistically, though, we will have some restrictions that will need to be implemented during this period, and I think we're probably looking at the most significant restrictions to vessel movements occurring between the 3rd and the 5th of July as we look to get those naval ships into the port and anchored and in position for the naval review. Of course, the events on the 4th of July, and then even on the 5th as we look to move some of those ships that will be at anchor to berths for the remainder of the week's celebrations. This will be essentially the Navy's Fleet Week, although they're not calling it that. They're calling it the International Naval Review. Those of you who are familiar with Fleet Week New York, on average Fleet Week, we get about 5 to 7 naval vessels coming into the port with about 2,000 sailors. As I mentioned, this will be closer to 50 naval vessels with somewhere around 15 to 20,000 sailors arriving for essentially a week of celebrations here in the port. If you go to the next slide, please. And just one slide on our planning effort to date, and I won't spend too much time on this slide other than to tell you that we have a robust planning effort that's been underway for some time, involving many federal, state, local, and industry partners. We've been doing a lot of outreach through harbor safety committees, getting the word out about this event, and making sure that we've got stakeholders' perspectives in the mix here as we continue our planning. You'll notice kind of our 4 primary planning objectives on the right, and I'll call your attention to number 2 there, minimizing disruption to the marine transportation system. That is one of our primary planning objectives as we continue our effort here. However, we do expect there will be, again, as I mentioned, some impacts. And then finally, on the bottom half of the slide, you'll see a graphic there that shows some of the limited access areas that we're proposing to put into place for this event. I'll note that the Coast Guard has published a notice of proposed rulemaking in the Federal Register. That Federal Register notice went live on December 19th and is open for public comment through February 17th. And that NPRM proposes a number of restricted and closed areas that you're seeing there on the bottom of the slide in the form of safety zones, staging areas, and even spectator areas. And we are inviting public comment on this proposed rule right now. So I did bring with me about 40 copies of a Marine Safety Information Bulletin that has the details of that Federal Register notice. If anybody here is interested, it's just important that we get any comments in on the docket there by the 17th of February so we can take your comments into consideration if you have any. And that's a real quick overview of the event itself and our planning effort. I know we've got a lot of other topics to cover here during the event today, so I won't belabor my presentation here, but I'll just offer to you, if you have any questions or would like to talk further about these events and what we project the impacts might be, I'll certainly be available to you on the breaks and afterwards here to talk. So thanks very much. Thanks as always for the partnership that we enjoy throughout the year as we work together again to keep our port safe, secure, and moving efficiently and reliably. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Andrzejczyk. It's always tough for me to introduce Beth because, we work so closely with her. I think she works closely with everybody in this room, but she really is the Energizer Bunny and just is such an awesome force in terms of what we do, not just at the Port Authority, but I think as an advocate for everything we do collectively as a community, as a business community. And so, we had an awesome year last year. I think it was an excellent year, and Beth's going to talk a little bit about that. And we've also got a big agenda for 2026 and beyond. So without further ado, our Port Director, Beth Rooney.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. So, John, if you know I'm not going to let this go, but if you've got the chicken and pork this year, we're having filet mignon and lobster tail next year. So, it'll be hard to match, I'm sure. So, thank you for the opportunity really to be here. And, Mike calls me the Energizer Bunny, and the chairman, refers to me as, the reason we are what we are. But I'm just a vessel, no pun intended. It is truly my honor, and I'm humbled every day to be able to direct the port. And Dennis Lombardi, you know, somewhere in the room, I know you're hiding somewhere, Dennis. Where is he? He's literally hiding. Dennis Lombardi, you know, former deputy director for the Port Department. When I started and we were kind of growing up in the agency together, I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that I could ever be the port director. But as the years went on, you know, I think it became more and more possible, at least in my mind, and here we are, and I think approaching 5 years in another month or two. So as the chairman and Mike have said, I want to go through the numbers to begin with, but you know, I don't have to tell you all about the numbers of headwinds that we have been facing in an industry, both in terms of nationally with softened freight demand and inflation and tariffs on again, off again, on again, off again, off again, on again, higher, lower, lower, higher, you know, and everything in between. So a tremendous amount of volatility and uncertainty, weakened carrier demand. Locally, we have been dealing with the Port Street Corridor Improvement Project and the local traffic that has come from that. We've continued to have problems with empty container management and managing the workflow, particularly for the truckers and the shippers, in managing, you know, access to appointments both at warehouses and for those terminals that have them. Locally for the trucking community, the independent owner-operator model, of which about 85% of our truck drivers are, has been threatened. So I used this quote a couple of weeks ago at a bi-state trucking event from Rocky Balboa, and which says, life isn't about how hard you can get hit, but about how much you can get hit and still keep moving forward. And one thing for sure is that this industry keeps getting hit, but here in the Port of New York and New Jersey, we never get knocked out. And that's because of each and every one of you that are committed to this port. So getting into the numbers, last year, starting on the vessel side, we had over 2,900 vessels call the Port Authority's facilities alone. That was 208 more vessels than in 2024, or a 7.7% increase. And that's an interesting metric because as the ships have been getting larger, we were seeing the number of ship calls go down, and now we're seeing the number of ship calls go up. But for our pilots, and for the Coast Guard Vessel Traffic Service, and for our tugboat operators and whatnot, those 2,900 vessels is just half of all of the vessels, international deep draft arrivals that are occurring in the Port of New York and New Jersey. Again, just to put things in perspective. So last year we handled 8.9 million TEUs, 20-foot equivalent units, a 2.3% increase overall from 2024. Our import loads were up as part of that, a 1.7% increase. And interestingly, our export loads were up. And we are not traditionally an export port. But in 2025, our export loads were up 6.5%. And it's on things like vehicles, wood pulp, food, iron and steel, and very surprising to me, railway and tramway stock. And it's surprising to me because the port and our auto processors and car carriers have been importing for the Port Authority's PATH system rail cars, but somehow we're exporting rail cars as well. But in nationwide, total loaded containers, the Port of New York and New Jersey was number 2, behind the Port of Los Angeles. So we're still holding our own in terms of loaded volume. The West Coast is certainly moving a hell of a lot more empties than we are because of proximity. So when you look at their total volume, to me, it doesn't all count. Loaded volume, right? Any of you get paid for empty containers? No. So it's all about the loaded cargo volume, and we're number 2 in the country, and of course remain number 1 on the US East Coast. Companies have definitely been reevaluating their sourcing strategies. Some shifting to other countries has been going on. Our market share from China last year decreased fairly significantly, while our market share with India, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Sri Lanka is increasing. And to me, Sri Lanka was one of the surprising metrics there. Also, interestingly, 47% of all of our container volume arrived last year on vessels that would not have been able to call the Port of New York and New Jersey just 5 years ago. So before the harbor deepening project was completed, before the Bayonne Bridge was completed, we were essentially capped out at about 8,000 TEUs. So now 47% of our volume is arriving on ships that are capable of carrying more than 9,000 TEUs. Our rail volume, as you see here, last year, 719,000 lifts. So this is actual moves, not in terms of TEUs, was a 12.4% increase over the previous year. So our rail volume is growing, which is very good for us because, as we all know, our truck gates are very, very busy, and we need to, I'm sorry to all the truckers in the room, looking at you, Tom, front and center, but we need to move as much as we can by rail so that we can relieve pressure on the gates, particularly for the local cargo. And still, 85% of our volume is still moving here locally, so there will be no shortage of activity for the truckers. Our auto volume is the area where we struggled the most last year. And unfortunately, we saw about 11% decrease in our auto volume. And when you look and talk about the tariffs have hit the auto business hard. Again, looking at Gary from FAPS, and it hit all of the models. So whether it was BMW or Toyota, or the multitude of models that FAPS handles, they were hit hard last year, but I think we have some cautious optimism that we're going to at least continue to slowly grow in the coming year. On the cruise passenger side, over 846,000 cruise passengers, and this is just at the Cape Liberty Cruise Terminal in Bayonne, so the Royal Caribbean brand, which was a 2.2% increase over last year. And then in our bulk cargoes, which is everything from our road salt, which we've talked a lot about in the last week, to the scrap metal, the Belgian block, our orange juice, edible oils, and cement, we're up 57% over the previous year with a total of 3.1 million metric tons. So a lot more of the bulk cargoes moving. So just very quickly looking at how we stand with regards to our forecast, we're doing well. So you all know that we finished our Port Master Plan in 2019. That Port Master Plan, after looking at all sorts of micro and macro projections and socioeconomic trends, forecasted that between 2020 and 2050, the port was going to double in its volume, if not triple. And that is consistent both for container volume, for auto volume, for cruise passengers, and for the bulk cargo. So with regards to the container volume only, that projection had us doing somewhere between 12 and 17 million TEUs by 2050. For planning purposes, we are taking the middle of the road. So we have been looking at doing about 14 million TEUs by 2050. Again, we did 8.9 last year, and during the pandemic, we tapped out at 9.5. So we are doing wrong slide. We are 4.3% higher than what we were forecasting to be at this point. Now, it's a little painful for some of you all because we saw a 28% increase during the pandemic, right? And that volume was like, manna from heaven. And unfortunately, the manna from heaven, didn't stay. So as those volumes have normalized, and we saw many more players enter the market, now what is a good, strong volume, consistent with above where we expect it to be, is unfortunately being handled by more market players. And therefore, I think some folks are experiencing a decline in volume while we're still doing well overall. And then just to look at, this crazy seasonality, we took a number of years off of the slide, but if you go back to 2019, which was really our last normal year, nothing has been normal since then, and I don't anticipate, that we will be getting back to normal in 2026. But there at least is a little bit of some consistency in the trend, at least in the first half of the year, between last year and this year. But again, we're 16.3% higher than we were during the pre-pandemic, 2019 volume. So a 16.3% growth in 5 years or 6 years of activity is pretty darn good. So looking at what we accomplished, and again, this is the collective we in terms of what we accomplished. We welcomed to MAR Terminals, the largest container vessel to call the Port of New York and New Jersey, which was the OOCL Iris. That is capable of carrying 16,828 TEUs. And it's now one of 7 different vessels in that class that is consistently calling the port. John talked about, alliances, new alliances, old alliances, breakups. So the Gemini cooperation launched at APM in February, and I think we have seen a lot of the on-time arrivals for those partners, Maersk and Hapag, increase exponentially since that occurred. The chairman talked about the landmark deal that we reached with APM Terminals in April. We now have lease longevity through 2062, 2063. And what that does and why that's a big deal is that it allows the terminal operators to have a long runway to make needed investments in the terminal. And it's needed investments in capacity, in fluidity, in customer service, customer experience, and beyond. So, and APM has totally hit the ground running with this. I know Henrik is in the room somewhere, but there are dozens of people that have been brought on board in Elizabeth now to execute what will be really a monumental change to the terminal and the terminal layout and capacity and whatnot. We finalized a lease agreement, or sale agreement rather, with the city of Bayonne. We sold off a small portion of the southern face of the wharf in Bayonne, which is going to allow the city of Bayonne now to create a ferry terminal. And that ferry terminal is, God willing, going to be up and running in time for FIFA and for Sailforth 250. We also saw early in the new year the return of Hogue Autoliners, which had not been calling the Port of New York and New Jersey since 2020. And we also saw the return of Sealead, which had not been calling the Port of New York and New Jersey since 2022. And both of those services now making regular calls. On the workforce development side, in May, we launched Hillary and her team at the Council on Port Performance Workforce Development Implementation Team relaunched a program of partnerships with some of the local schools, high schools, junior colleges, where industry folks are now going into the classrooms, collaborating with students, giving students a view into what is this crazy world that we are all working in, because very few of us actually chose what we were doing, and the rest of you stumbled into it, but it wasn't something that you ever would have chosen, in high school. So now we have robust programs again where we're back in the classrooms telling young people about all the opportunities that exist. And just a quick shout out to Thor Ho from International Cargo Terminals and Tim Avanzato from Lanka Sales, who were both instrumental in helping us get that program going. We held our cold chain summit, and one of the cargoes that we do see growing and think that we have a bigger opportunity in the future is with refrigerated cargo. So we held a specialized cold chain summit in June. Port Newark Container Terminal, I know you're sitting right here, Jim. Port Newark Container Terminal finalized earlier this year a 7.2 megawatt solar system that now provides 50% of the terminal's energy, and they have the capability to provide the surplus back to the city of Newark. And this is, from everything that all of us have been able to find, at least the second largest container terminal solar project in the world, and the only one to put solar panels over the truck entry lanes. So well done, Jim, and your leadership on that. Port Liberty Bayonne opened a new berth 3. And in doing so, brought in 4 new Super Post Panamax cranes. Captain Ondracek and I could talk to the early morning and late night hours of trying to make sure that we measured every millimeter of space underneath the Verrazano Bridge to make sure that they could get in. But they did get in, and they're up and working, and now capable of handling 24,000 TEU vessels. Also in July, do I have to advance? I can't see the slides. What month are we up to over there? Go back. Thank you. Also in July, we launched, again with Hillary's team, the Trucker Business Academy. Lori Margolin of the Hudson Community College has been a huge proponent and big champion for us in helping to bridge the gaps and supporting independent owner-operators. We launched that pilot program in July. It was successful, and we found out just a week or 2 ago that we have funding to move beyond the pilot phase this year, so we're excited about that. The EV charging station opened at the Port Newark Information Center. Unfortunately, at the moment, we only have a handful of electric trucks serving the port, but that number's going to increase, right, Tanya? But I can tell you that for my Port Authority issued electric car, those fast chargers are phenomenal. Great to see those. The Symphony of the Seas, the largest cruise ship calling the Northeast, arrived in Cape Liberty Cruise Terminal with 6,680 guests and another 3,000 or so crew members. Again, the largest vessel of its kind calling. We also welcomed to MAR Terminals the COSCO Shipping Yangpu. And this is notable because it was the first dual-fueled, but methanol dual-fueled ship to call the Port of New York and New Jersey. So we've been seeing LNG fueled vessels, but this was the first in the methanol environment. We finished a lease with Don John Marine. Still going back. Sorry. All right, next year we need something that I can see where the hell we are. Don John Marine, notable for two reasons. One is Don John Marine processes a lot of the dredge material that comes out of the harbor, both from the Port Authority's contracts and Army Corps of Engineers contracts, but it is an important puzzle piece in what we have planned in the Port Master Plan, along with Port Newark Container Terminal, to expand container terminal capacity from Export Street out to the face of the wharf that's on Newark Bay. So we've been moving tenants, we've been terminating tenants, and this movement of Don John Marine is an important part of that process. We supported Trucker Appreciation Week, partnering with a number of our container terminals and outreach to the trucking community. We've been working day in and day out with the Army Corps of Engineers on sequencing the harbor deepening and channel improvement projects, 55-foot deepening, and working to coordinate in concert with the Coast Guard, with the pilots, both the harbor pilots and the docking pilots and the bar pilots. We've been working to coordinate the sequencing with them. Unfortunately, the Army Corps' funding was put on hold for several weeks at the end of the last federal fiscal year, but they are back on track now, and I'm optimistic that we will finish the PED, the Project Engineering and Design, as we intended to. The Port Department has finalized the GIS Master Plan. That's probably a bunch of gobbledygook to most of you, but I'm going to come back to that in a second. Reverend is shaking his head. I have no idea what that means, but I'm going to come back to that in a moment. So stay tuned. We held our Rail Summit, and this Rail Summit held here at the Marriott this past year, I think was very beneficial for all sides because we had a number of shippers who participated and really shared their experiences. We also held a military veterans job fair for careers in transportation, logistics, and distribution. And notably, we know that these folks are getting hired in our industry, and that's really the good news. Now I can go. All right. So on the other issues for December, the Port Authority's capital plan, 10-year capital plan, 2026 to 2035, was passed. It's a $45 billion plan. The Port Department gets $2 billion of it. So, you know, we don't get a huge amount of it, but I can tell you that it is dedicated to the things that we need to focus on. We completed a number of studies, one on our bulk commodities and traffic. We also completed an auto land use study. We issued a best practice document to New York Waterways, and many of you probably don't know that we operate the ferry terminal at Brookfield Place in Manhattan, as well as in Hoboken at the transportation hub. So that service that runs between those is a Port Authority service. New York Waterways is operating that service on our behalf. But after seeing EVs, electric scooters, and electric bikes, with a fire that occurred on a ferry out in the Pacific Northwest. We did a best practice study, and then we implemented and issued requirements to New York Waterways for carrying of electric devices. As with APM, we completed a monumental lease extension with MAR Terminals for 33 years, and same thing as with APM. I think I was only told that I signed the documents 10 days ago, so I'm looking forward to the momentum that we've seen with APM in thinking through master terminal development plans and near-term capacity expansions. I'm certain that we're going to be having those conversations with MAR Terminals shortly. As part of the APM deal, one of our Expressport Plaza buildings was turned over to them, and that's going to be part of the expansion of APM terminals. We completed our annual emissions study, and really monumentally, we issued sub-grant agreements to APM, MAR, CalSTAR, Essex Cement, Port Liberty Bayonne, and Port Liberty, New York. And we have gotten the largest grant, certainly in the Port Authority's history, for sustainability, $470-odd million. And through that grant and the sub-grant agreements now, particularly to the container terminals, we will see 25% of our cargo handling fleet turned over to an electric mode or an alternative fuel mode of operation. We're also going to see the first of our shore power systems outside of the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal. We're going to see the first of the shore power systems brought into the Elizabeth Port Authority Marine Terminal. And I'm sure you're all thrilled, particularly those of you that are tenants, that we revised the water billing process. So now instead of the Port Authority paying for water that you're using, you know, if you're a tenant, you'll be paying for your own water moving forward. So in addition to that, and this was really a huge effort, but across APM terminals, PNCT, and MAR terminals, 10 ship-to-shore cranes were carefully demolished, you know, either in place or they were moved to a remote location to be engineered and taken apart. And to do that in operating container terminals, to do that and ensure that the demolished equipment doesn't damage the ground or any of the infrastructure below ground was a very carefully coordinated exercise between the terminal operators and our engineering and our terminal staff. And that, you know, has now been completed. I think we're done demolishing cranes for the time being. Maybe. So well done in that part. We cleaned up 150,000 cubic yards of dredge material, and that's in order to keep the berths at their optimized depths. We launched a trucker feedback program through a company called Velocia, and this provides truckers the opportunity to provide real-time feedback to us about the environment and the situation and their experience in one of the container terminals. They are geographically referenced, and then the truckers are able to gather points so that they can then redeem those points for gas or you know, other trucker-related stuff. We also launched a chatbot that is part of our truck service center. Our chatbot is named Bob. So hopefully our trucking partners have been able to interact with Bob, and Bob is there to provide real-time information and troubleshooting as opposed to waiting in those interminable holds, you know, that we all get on, you know, when we call looking for help. We upgraded our wayfinding in Port Jersey and changed out a lot of the signage at New Jersey Marine Terminals where, you know, they were just old and faded and, you know, you couldn't read the signs. Our emergency operations plans have been completely rewritten and updated, and we've held a number of tabletop exercises and drills on things like a mass casualty event at the Cape Liberty Cruise Terminal, all of our facility security plans, business continuity exercises, and hurricane exercises. On an ongoing basis, we continue to work on the wharf rehabilitation. I believe we have about 8 contracts that are out and underway right now across our facilities. Work is continuing on the replacement of the Corbin Street ramp, and it is soon to reopen, hopefully by the end of first quarter. Now, I'm looking at Mary Lee, but she's retired, so she doesn't care anymore when it gets open, but But hopefully by the end of the first quarter, the Corbin Street ramp with 2 lanes of traffic will be reopened. We continue to fund the truck replacement program. We have another $2.5 million that's available in the program now, with more coming. The Clean Vessel Incentive continues to work and operate. We have the community college work-study internships where we're placing young students into various TLD jobs for internship experience. Our Port Users Group last year was revamped, and now we are able to hold the Port User Group meetings both in person and virtually, and that has increased the participation in those meetings. I mean, it's more than tripled the participation in those meetings. And then what has become hot and heavy, prior to the tariff discussions, hardly anybody knew what a foreign trade zone was. But now with all of the tariff issues and concerns, foreign trade zones are becoming much more important. And Dan, as our foreign trade zone manager, has been bringing on new businesses, expanding zones, creating subzones, working very closely with Customs and Border Protection and Tina Val staff in order to do that. All right, where am I going here? All right. So in terms of, industry engagement, this is really, and I'm not going to go through all this, but this is really, what our business development staff under Amanda Valdez's leadership does, day in and day out. But it's really getting out and engaging and being in front of everybody. And you can see that there's just an extensive amount of things that they do every year. So if you consider what the last 5 years have shown us, uncertainty will probably remain the biggest challenge that we have for 2026. Forecasts expect that the volume could be flat with 2025, if not slightly below. In some sense, that's just a natural part of global trade. Demand rises and falls, much like the tides. But as John was saying, it allows us some breathing room to innovate without the immediate pressure of those peak demands, reinforce the fundamentals, focus on upgrading infrastructure, modernizing operations, and strengthening our partnerships. We need to use this time strategically. We cannot continue to just operate using 1/3 of the available hours in a week. The next surge is going to come. It's important that we prepare thoughtfully now so that we are best positioned to meet the next cycle of growth and expansion. This period that we're in now in 2026 should be viewed as an opportunity to build a smarter, more integrated logistics ecosystem across the gateway. And to that end, I want to talk briefly about the Council on Port Performance. I think it was last year that we recognized that the Council has been in operation now for over 10 years. And the Council, as a reminder, is made up of leaders of industry across all sectors of the supply chain who come together to talk about what could we do, what might we be able to do in order to improve the ecosystem. Unfortunately, the Council on Port Performance has no authority to force anyone to do anything. But we're hopeful that the more we talk about it, the more at least peer pressure will help drive some changes. So in 2025, the Council on Port Performance was very active in 3 priority items. One was updating the bylaws and the charter because they hadn't been looked at since we started the group, going back now over a decade. Second was a look at the appointment systems and the work of an appointment system working group that were led by Tim Avanzato and Lisa Yakiman. And then the derivative of that was an effort to identify changes that needed to be made throughout the supply chain because the discussions at the appointment system working group level identified that there were inextricably linked issues that also need to be addressed if the system as a whole were to work effectively and efficiently. So those 2 reports have now been finalized, and our team, I think, is meeting tomorrow to develop a work plan for how we're going to move forward with those sector-specific recommendations. And the council members voted and kind of ranked each of those recommendations on the value that they would provide to the greater Port of New York and New Jersey in overall efficiency and productivity. So we're going to step out now with coming up with draft work plans for how we as a council, and hopefully many of you would be willing to participate as committee members or work group members to help advance some of those initiatives. So I expect more to come on those shortly. So I've talked about the strategic priorities for the Port Department. You've seen this before. This is just a reminder as to what they are, but efficiency of cargo movement, land use, environmental impacts, optimizing rail utilization, ensuring resiliency, developing the workforce, and building out the capital infrastructure. So I want to introduce you to the Port Department's strategic plan for the next 5 years, 2026 to 20, whatever that is, Hillary, 30? Thank you. So Hillary and her team, building off of the work that we initially did in the Port Master Plan and the early successes that we had in the first 5 years of the strategic plan, have now put together the Port Department strategic plan for the next 5 years. It builds on our strategic goals, again, that are enumerated here. You have access to the strategic plan via that QR code. There's also, we can send out to everybody afterwards, we can send out the pathway to follow with a URL in order to get to that. But the strategic plan that's available on the website will march you through all of those critical initiatives and projects that the Port Department will be working on in order to continue to advance the work on the strategic plan and meeting the Port Master Plan's goals and objectives. So as we look into 2026, the chairman mentioned Mary Lee Clanton, who retired on Friday. But the Port Authority last year put out a voluntary severance program, and the voluntary severance program was available to those individuals who were of age and had more than 10 years of service, I think it was. And in the Port Department, there were 7 of us eligible. 5 people took it. I'll say for the record that myself and Hillary McCarran are the only fools who did not take the program. And more foolish than Hillary not taking it is her husband is the controller for the Port Authority, and he didn't take it either. So that's how much we love what we do. But for the Port Department, Mary Lee, who was our Assistant Director for Capital and Planning, took the program after 33 years of service. Angel Rios, our General Manager of New Jersey Marine Terminals, is on a stay of execution. He's been extended until the end of July, when he'll be retiring. And then 3 other individuals, one was working in the Truck Service Center, one was working in our asset management team, and Carol McCarthy, who was working in our leasing team. Paul Lucian, who many of you may remember was the Deputy General Manager of New Jersey Marine Terminals a couple of years ago, is coming back to be the new General Manager of New Jersey Marine Terminals when Angel moves on, actually in about a month or so. Paul will be taken over. And Mary Lee's successor, and also many of you, I think, know Erica Francis, who was the Assistant Director of Business Services. She moved on to our aviation department. So of Mike's and mine senior team, we lost 3 of our 4. senior managers. So Stephanie is the last holdout, but I'm confident that we've got a plan to fill those positions, and I'm confident that the people who are going to fill those positions are in this room, but we're waiting for the new executive director of the Port Authority, Catherine Garcia, to come on board and get started, and then she's going to meet with these individuals and bring them on. So we'll share all of those changes as they become available. So looking into 2026, we are going to be working, and we are working closely with New Jersey EDA and Rutgers University and PSEG on a hydrogen pilot program where we'll have hydrogen-fueled trucks. Tom Heimgartner and Best Transportation, I think, has 3 of the 6 trucks that are going to be deployed in a pilot program. So we're going to have a fueling station on port. We are, for the benefit of the pilots, going to be installing new current meters and water sensors, which will help the ocean carriers in terms of having real-time information that they can use for planning their sailing, both inbound and outbound. We'll be finalizing a permitting program for all the food trucks that are operating in the port. We have an RFEI, a request for expression of interest, out for about 9 acres in the Military Ocean Terminal that cannot really be used for anything else, and we're looking for creative ideas or somebody to take that off of us. We're going to be following closely all of the discussions with Norfolk Southern and the UP and the impacts of that merger. And depending on who you talk to, it's going to benefit the East Coast ports, and other people you talk to, it's going to benefit the West Coast ports. So we really have to dig into the filings and understand what the railroads are saying, but that is going to be a very important initiative for us, and it's something that Nicole, as our intermodal manager, has already been jumping into. We have, and hopefully if you've been through any of our airports recently, you've seen the anti-hustling programs that we have at the airports to make sure that you get into a car or a car service that is legit and isn't gonna, take you for a ride financially. We're gonna put a similar program in place at the Cape Liberty Cruise Terminal in advance of the peak of this year's cruise season. We're modernizing our rules and regulations to get rid of things like horse-drawn carriages and other sisal and hemp, the cargoes that, we used to handle. We'll be wiping all of that, out of our rules and regs finally. Believe it or not, we operate a fishing pier, so we're making access to the fishing pier in Port Jersey a better user experience, including putting static binoculars out there so that you can view the harbor and view the ships and whatnot. In terms of workforce development, next slide, thank you very much. In terms of workforce development, I talked about the Small Business Academy. We're going to continue to work to place community college students in internships, and we're going to continue to hold job fairs and career awareness events. And again, that is something that each and every one of you can participate in, and we really look for your active participation in those. Planning for FIFA is huge. Our ferry terminal is going to be used to shuttle people to a number of the fan events in Liberty State Park. We're expecting, something like 4x, 5x the number of passengers that we normally handle. And as the captain said, some of that FIFA activity is going to be going on the same time as Sailforth 250. So how we manage landing zones and landing slots for U.S. Navy vessels and foreign Navy vessels at our ferry terminal while we're also shuttling people, over to the Fan Fest is going to be a top priority for us. Fire protection, life safety inspections, a stevedore licensing program. So we have stevedores that are operating at our berths that we've never had an agreement with of any kind, because the access to the public berths is created through the ship's agent. And then the stevedore just works there on behalf of the ship. So we'll be putting a stevedore licensing program in place, and we're looking to launch a tactical training center in what is Building 14 in Bayonne. And this comes on the heels of the tragic fire where we lost 2 firefighters from the city of Newark now 2 years ago. But we're looking to develop a tactical training center where individuals, fire service, police, EMS, will all be able to train on a number of scenarios that not only could they experience in the port, but that they could experience anywhere in the region. So for example, the Gateway Tunnel project that would connect New Jersey to Penn Station, New York Penn Station, before those tunnel boring machines are deployed underneath the Hudson River, we need to have first responders that are prepared to do a tunnel rescue or an extraction if, God forbid, there's an incident. So we're looking to train individuals at our tactical training center for those types of scenarios and others. We were looking to include real-time vessel monitoring in our security dashboard. And I know this should be the #1 thing that I talked about in terms of what we're doing in 2026, but we are enhancing our basic communication infrastructure in Port Newark and Elizabeth with Wi-Fi and cellular capabilities that is beyond the crap, quite frankly, that we have right now. So we are getting the basics, and I'll tell you, this is an agency-wide initiative, and we're talking about, bringing things like, I don't even know what it's called, but it's basically like Wi-Fi 10.0 to our airports. And what I said to our chief technology officer is that we need Wi-Fi 1.0 in the port before we think about getting, 10.0 for our airports. So new Wi-Fi and cell infrastructure is coming to the port. So as we all know, the port doesn't move the cargo. The people move the cargo. Every success that we have discussed today is the result of the dedication, skill, pride of each and every one of you who show up every day to make this port work. I'm grateful for your hard work, commitment, your resilience, and our shared purpose. The work ahead will demand discipline, collaboration, and vision, but this port community has never shied away from challenges or hard work. We are positioned to not just respond to change, but to lead it. Together, we'll keep this port strong, vibrant, competitive, and ready for the future. Thank you for your commitment, your partnership, and belief in what we are building together. We are not just moving cargo, we're strengthening our community and the economy for those around us. Thank you all for coming today. So we'll see you all before that, but Port State of the Port 2026, the last Monday of January, provided that there's no snow. So stay well, stay safe, have a great year, and we'll see you all soon.